Alright, ladies and gentlemen, Baron here. So this is the focke-wulf 189A1. This is going to be one of the new additions to patch 1.57. But it won't be in the main tree and it won't be a premium, right? It will be an event aircraft, which we'll go over later. We'll go over some of the details, but what I want you to notice right now is you'll notice the two light machine guns in the front. There's two rear gunner spots. There are 3 crew members, the pilot and 2 gunners. This is a reconnaissance aircraft, right? And that actually brings up a really good talking point that I've wanted to address for a while, is reconnaissance aircraft and having a mechanic in the game. But look at this thing. Look at all the glasswork on it. The cockpit of this thing should be really fun to look through. But look at that. That's one of the coolest parts, the landing gear. It has very unique landing gear in that the rear wheel pops out from the boom where the elevator is right there. So imagine that thing landing. But it is a reconnaissance aircraft. It'll be a special events aircraft. So what I imagine is that we'll have an opportunity to win them just like, what was it, the XP, was it the XP55 or the XP50? The XP50? One of those things, like the HE51 Hydro. There was a lot of special aircraft, like the Boston Bomber for me. Basically, you complete a lot of missions and you open one up, right? And there was actually a lot of those times, a lot of these aircraft have come out during holiday events. And this, to my knowledge, if the patch drops in early March or late February, there's not really a holiday there that you, unless you count the leap year, I don't really know. Anyway, but yeah, it's a reconnaissance aircraft. And let's read a little bit what it says. The cabins for the pilot and rear gunner are almost entirely made of glass, providing full visibility to the front and rear of the aircraft. So it'll have some of the best vision in the cockpits. And also what's interesting is that also means the rear gunner has a very good position to shoot almost everything behind it. And that actually brings up this aircraft historically. It may seem like, oh, it's a reconnaissance aircraft, right? It's probably easy fodder for most planes in the game, right? Well, it's not, because this was one of the most maneuverable aircraft. It was incredibly maneuverable, and the rear gunners could shoot at almost anything behind them. So the Soviet pilots were told not to enter into a maneuvering dogfight, instead basically using high-speed boom and zoom attacks on it, and preferably, you know, from the sun is what they have in the devlog, basically trying to ambush this thing, because I guess it's rather formidable. So it's going to be kind of fun to have a German aircraft that is incredibly maneuverable. And if something does manage to get on your 6 o'clock, you've got pretty decent gunners. However, it's going to be relatively low tier, because when you look at the bomb capacity of this aircraft and the machine guns that it has, they're all light machine guns. So they called it the Flying Eye. Interesting. So the Flying Eye. That's an interesting nickname. So it is a reconnaissance aircraft, and that kind of brings up a few things that I wanted to talk about with regards to something that I think War Thunder needs. And it does need a proper spotting mechanic in the game for both tanks and planes, because there isn't one right now, and you don't really get rewarded for basically reconnaissance, right? And if you're not getting rewarded for doing something, the majority of people are not going to do it. And that, I think, really takes away some of the tactical options that you could otherwise have within a battle in War Thunder, right? If you were rewarded for scouting, for spotting, think about this. Think about a realistic battle, a tank realistic battle, right? My favorite mode in the game. Because you do have the option of playing in the ground, you obviously have the option of getting in a ground attack or bomber aircraft and killing player-controlled tanks. And there's just not too much that's more satisfying for me personally than that in the game, other than catching someone in landing sequence with their flaps down. Catching someone with their pants down, right? It's kind of funny. But is since there's no reward for it, people aren't going to do it. However, if there was, this aircraft would be even greater, and then it would open up a whole option of future aircraft to be added in the game, as well as light tanks and armored cars. See, because armored cars, given that they don't have the 2-track system and they're actually like wheeled, it makes them harder to maneuver, and there's a lot of like off-road terrain in which an armored car wouldn't be as good of a choice as a light tank, right? But if there was a scouting mechanic in the game, you know, maybe armored cars would be better used or would have more tactical use, and then that would open up the viability of armored cars. And even just when looking at the focke-wulf 189 Flying Eye, I mean, this thing, if it had a scouting mechanic in realistic battles, I would be flying one of these around all day and pinging people for, like, you know, going in a squad for like 2 of my tank friends on the ground. And that would be so fun. Like, I wouldn't need to bomb them, because it would be like, think how hard it is, or not hard, but more challenging it is when flying a ground attack aircraft, and when you're like zooming in and trying to, you know, look for those little pixels that are enemy player controlled tanks in a battle. And then with that mechanic in the game, but right now War Thunder just doesn't have it, right? But I whenever I see something like this, I am what you would call an optimist. I see the potential in things, and I ravenously attack that, right, in my mind. It's like, what could this game be? And it's just a mental exercise, and my imagination runs wild. Now, a lot of times, things don't add up to my expectations or my imagination, but I think a scouting mechanic is a reasonable idea. I mean, World of Tanks has an incredibly well-placed, an incredibly well-made, an incredibly good scouting mechanic. But that's because they have, they have their rock, paper, scissors type competitive style, right? We have historically accurate style. But even though in War Thunder we have historically accurate focus, then we definitely need a scouting mechanic, because it would just it would make the game better. That's just a fact. It's just a fact. And then this thing would be fun. There's a lot of people out there that would be perfectly content to fly a transport plane from one airfield to the other in a combat mission, and they would thoroughly enjoy that, right? That's a mechanic that you could be rewarded for in, like, maybe, an enduring confrontation, right? But since we have just regular battles right now, we have realistic battles, I think we definitely need a scouting mechanic. That's something we need. It's not as high as, say, like, really making sure the battle ratings are correct, but I would say that's, for me, would be in the top 5. That and warships. Come on now, we want ships in this game. Like rivers. Imagine, like, you're in a PT-76 and you're trying to cross a river, and there's a PT boat running you down or something like that. I don't know. Or like if you're on the coastline and there's a PT boat running around with like a little 20 mil, 37 mil autocannon or something like that. Man, possibilities are endless. See, that's where imagination runs wild. But I think this is kind of cool, and I'm interested to see how they're going to implement this special events, right? So basically all of us are going to have an option to get one of these for free, as far as like we don't have to pay, Golden Eagles or Silver Lions or anything like that. We will have to put in time, so I mean that is a cost, but that's the way free-to-play models are. You're going to pay one way or the other, and in most cases both. But I think this is going to be fun. It's going to give the Germans a maneuverable aircraft. It's going to be interesting to see how well, what the battle rating of this thing is. I would imagine it would be a relatively low tier and low battle rating plane, given the armament that it has. It can carry, I think, 4 50-kilogram bombs. And with its maneuverability, and if there was a scouting mechanic put in the game, and spotting mechanic, to where, like, if you were flying this over and you pinged an enemy tank and then it was killed, and you basically maybe got an assist for that or rewarded to the same level, I think that would be a brilliant thing. And then this would be an incredibly popular aircraft, and then people would be wanting more scouting aircraft. So anyway, I'm excited for it. What do you guys think? It's a very unique looking German aircraft. I'm generally a big fan of anything that's kind of outlandish and crazy, because I think it adds flavor and character to this game when, you know, you have a lot of people just flying around in Spitfire Griffins, and, you know, everyone's like, P-51's best. You know, like, I like these kind of things. I like the derpy looking stuff. I mean, the TB3 and PO2 are still some of my favorite planes just because they're absolutely silly, right? Now this, on the other hand, is silly and practical. So who knows? Will it become my favorite plane? I don't know. I don't know how it's going to play. But I'm really going to enjoy experimenting with it, because a highly maneuverable German airplane with light machine guns and pretty good rear fire means this thing will be a lot of fun at low tiers. But I guess we got to find out how we're going to get it in the special events. So this is dev server. That footage was from the test server. There's no dev server right now. I can't wait for the dev server. But patch 1.57 hype. The hype train is continuing to roll. I liked the Falcon SPAA, and I liked the Dornier 335. I'm not sure about the T-44-100, but I mean, if you look at the T-44-122, it wasn't the return of the T-34-100. And that just further emphasizes that, like, you really got to get your BRs right, because the T-34-100 was more a result of BR issue than the tank itself. Because, I mean, we all know by now that there's some tanks in the game and some models of tank that both historically and in the game perform incredibly well because they were made very well. And when it comes to tank-to-tank combat, there's a lot of stuff that you don't have to worry about. Like a Sherman tank was built to be incredibly good at dealing with infantry, right? And to a lesser extent, enemy tanks, right? But we don't have infantry in the game, but we should. But that is a discussion for another day. Ladies and gentlemen, let's see some more little rocket plane action. And let me know what else you'd like to see added in patch 1.57 and what you speculate. Because right now we've only got 4 confirmations. The Falcon AA Tier 5 for the Brits, T-44-100 for the Russians, and the Dornier 335 and the focke-wulf 189 for the Germans. So, some cool stuff. But I think, I don't know, man. Call me crazy, but I think I'm going to enjoy the focke-wulf 189 more than I will the Dornier 335. But we don't know that yet. I don't know that yet. I just got this hunch. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.